Who wants to eat like they're in Middle Earth? And welcome back to Cliffieland. This is Weekend Country number 125 on our second attempt of cooking the food of every single country in the world. And tonight we're up to the nation of New Zealand, a very special place for me and my favorite place on earth. New Zealand is an island nation located in the southern Pacific Ocean across the Tasman Sea from Australia. Now, the food of New Zealand is originally the food of the Maori people who first arrived on the islands in the 13th century, and that involves things like meats and vegetables, so usually steamed over the hot springs located in the North Island, generally around Rotorua. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that tonight because it is a lot like a lot of the other Polynesian dishes we're going to be doing for other island nations coming up. In fact, we have a specific dish from Papua New Guinea coming up in a few weeks, which is very similar, so watch for that. However, traditionally, the rest of New Zealand, the food is that of the British people who were the first European settlers, and that is a lot of food that is influenced by the Scottish and Irish tradition. You'll see a lot of fish and chips, a lot of more modern British favorites like chicken tikka, a lot of fish dishes, but what it is most known for is lamb. You may know that there's actually more sheep than people in New Zealand, specifically on the South Island. A lot of your lamb actually comes from New Zealand, and so we're going to be doing a lamb dish tonight. Another thing that it's known for is Kūmara. Now, you may know it as sweet potato, especially if you're American, but what you're thinking of sweet potato, especially if you're American, is not what the New Zealand people think of as Kūmara, because that's the Beauregard varietal of the vegetable. Now, the item that we're talking about in New Zealand is a varietal that's usually the red varietal or a gold one, which is the toka toka, which we're going to be using here tonight. Those taste quite different than the Beauregard varietal that you're used to in the States, so that's what we're doing here tonight as well. Now, we need to talk about another thing, which is called Kiwiana. But it is something which is a nostalgia for a time period, usually the post-war 20th century period in New Zealand, involving a lot of things, artifacts, and food that are very specific to New Zealand. And one of those is the unofficial national dessert, which is pavlova, named for the ballet dancer Anna Pavlova. Now, say this to Australian and they'll want to fight you because Australia and New Zealand both claim it as their creation, but you know, hey. Also, things like the kiwi bird and the kiwi fruit, also part of that. Now, this all reflects on what we did last time, so let's take a look and see how things went when we tried things then. Well, 4 years ago on the Global Cooking Challenge, I had not yet been to New Zealand. I've been twice since. And I'd been obsessed with the nation my entire life, so I reached out to a friend who lives there, and she told me some more about how things are there. And I decided night one to do something which was like that Kiwiana, and I would try to do it fish and chips. Unfortunately, I did it all wrong. I picked a bad recipe, and I foolishly got the wrong fish, and do not get started on the disaster that was my chips. That was very upsetting, and I'm glad that was just the first night. In terms of the second night, that's what we're going to be reproducing here. I did a slow-cooked pulled pork, which came out wonderfully, and I did that with a Kūmara orange mash, which actually used the Beauregard varietal, not knowing the difference yet. Yet that came out really well. This time we found the toka toka gold varietal, which is going to be more like what we had when we were in New Zealand. So now let's take a look and see what go into those two dishes. First, for our slow-cooked pulled lamb, we'll need 2 to 2.5 pounds of quality mark lamb shoulder, preferably bone-in, 2 tablespoons of butter, 4 large onions quartered, 1 whole bulb of garlic with the cloves peeled, 1 cup of white wine, 1 cup of chicken or beef stock, 4 stalks of fresh rosemary, 3 bay leaves, the zest of 1 lemon, 1 tablespoon of Dijon or whole grain mustard, 2 anchovies finely chopped, 1 tablespoon of cumin seeds, 3 teaspoons of cornstarch, which will be later mixed with a 1/4 cup of water, and chopped fresh herbs to garnish. And then for our Kūmara orange mash, we'll need 2 pounds of sweet potatoes, known as Kūmara in New Zealand. Here we're using a gold varietal, peeled and cut into 4 or 5 inch chunks. 1 1/4 cups of freshly squeezed orange juice, 1 tablespoon of grated fresh ginger, 1 garlic clove crushed, 2 tablespoons of butter, and salt and pepper to taste. I am so excited to be doing this, and you're gonna want to cook this too, so let's get cracking. Preheat the oven to 266 degrees Fahrenheit under conventional bake. Heat a little oil in a large frying pan over high heat. Add the lamb skin side down and cook until browned. Turn the lamb over and sear the other side until browned. Then set the lamb aside on a plate, drain the excess fat from the pan, reduce the heat to medium-high, and add the butter to the same pan, and cook the onions for a few minutes until golden. Then add the garlic cloves and cook for another few minutes. Add the wine, turn up the heat and let the wine bubble rapidly for a minute. Then add the stock, rosemary stalks, bay leaves, and lemon zest, and stir. And carefully pour everything into your largest roasting dish. Add the lamb to the dish, skin side up, then spread the mustard and the anchovies over the top, and drizzle it with olive oil. Sprinkle with the cumin seeds, and season with salt and pepper. Cover the dish tightly with foil, and bake in the oven for 5 hours or until falling off the bone. Baste the lamb a couple of times while cooking. Remove the foil and then turn the oven up to 392 degrees Fahrenheit and cook for 10 to 15 minutes until the lamb is browned and crunchy on top. Transfer the lamb to a warmed plate or platter. You can use a dinner plate to transfer it instead of tongs, as it will be falling apart and very tender, and cover it with the foil, and let it rest for 10 to 15 minutes before serving. To remove the layer of oil on the top of the pan juices, gently lay about 6 to 7 paper towels flat on the surface without pressing down, and wait a few minutes for them to soak through, then discard. Pour the remaining pan juices through a sieve into a clean saucepan. Then in a bowl, mix the water and the cornstarch, and add the cornstarch mixture to the saucepan, and boil until reduced to a nice pouring sauce while the lamb rests. Taste and season as required. Place the Kūmara in a large saucepan with enough water to cover it, and bring it to a boil. Reduce the heat to medium and simmer until tender, about 10 to 12 minutes. Meanwhile, in a small saucepan, combine the orange juice, ginger, and garlic, and bring that to a boil. And reduce the heat to medium and simmer uncovered until the juice is reduced to 3/4 of a cup, about 5 to 8 minutes. When the Kūmara are tender, drain them and move them to a bowl and mash with a potato masher. Add the butter and stir until melted. Gradually add the reduced orange mixture, stirring it with a wooden spoon. Season with pepper. Plate servings of the lamb, plate servings of the Kūmara, pour gravy over the lamb, and dress with the chopped herbs. How did that go? Well, I am so excited. It was one of the best nights ever. I loved it. I'm so happy I was able to do that for my favorite country. Starting off with that slow-cooked pulled pork. It was delicious. The lamb was full apart tender. It was juicy. It was just like everything I remember in New Zealand. I was so happy to be able to do that. I'm definitely doing that for dinner parties. So that obviously gets 5 out of 5 globes. So happy it was so good. Now the Kūmara was even better. I loved it so much. I'm so glad I found the type of Kūmara / sweet potato that I remember having back there. It was so delicious with that orange and garlic. It was creamy. It was wonderful. It was so great. I'm going to give that one 5 out of 5 globes. Go hunting for it. You will want to do that. So thank you. I can't wait till I'm back in New Zealand again because I can get more of their delicious food. So that does it for New Zealand and this little stint here in Oceania. Next week we go back to North America, Central America specifically, to have the food of Nicaragua. See you then. And remember, if you'd like to see our streams live when they happen, follow us on Periscope or Facebook Live. Like and subscribe to be advised when these videos are posted. If you have any thoughtful feelings or helpful suggestions about the food that we're cooking, sound off in the comments. Remember, links to the original recipes, remember these aren't my recipes, are found in the About section. And tune in next time. Thanks for watching and happy eating!